Tonight, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host, Daniel. Alongside with me, as always, Big Blue, except when he's not here. But Big Blue, how you doing, my man? I see you brought back the blue shirt.
Yeah, man. What's going on? How's everybody's Friday night starting out?
Oh, man, it's starting good for me. It's a 3-day weekend. What? Is it 3-day weekend for you, Blue?
No, I work the next 4 days. So, like I said, I work most holidays, but I get holiday pay on Monday, hopefully.
I hear you, man. I hear you. That's going to be that's the advantage, right? You get paid a little bit extra when you're working. I know all about it, man. And in your field and a field that I've worked in the past, holidays were just another day on the calendar when it came to the work.
There's no holidays in my field.
Exactly.
We're open every day of the week, every day of the year.
For sure. Yeah, I know what you mean. So, guys, today we're going to be talking about the trial or hearing that occurred. It was more of a hearing that occurred yesterday. Bryan Kohberger had some interesting things. His defense team, that is, had some interesting arguments yesterday. They brought up an interesting witness as well. I was kind of like, wow, at first. We'll get into that. But first, I want to remind you guys of 2 things. One is our partnership with DataSeal. If you have any concerns with your name, phone number, address, private information like religious preference or even voting preference, you don't want that to be out on their web, give DataSeal a check. They'll be able to wipe all that off. Click the link in the description and they'll give you a 5% discount. And the second thing I wanted to say is probably in the next 25 minutes or so, because I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a members only show this weekend. We will be turning the live chat to members only since they are paying subscribers, and because they pay more, or because they pay us, we're giving them the extra perks, so to speak, that comes with it. So nothing against anybody who does not want to be a member or can't be a member at this point. It's just a benefit for those that are. With that being said, let's get into it, Blue. I know you saw part of the hearing. Yeah. I've seen it like 2 or 3 times. I wanted to make sure I got everything right. First and foremost, the first time I watched it and I saw who the witness was, it was Detective Lawrence Mori from the Moscow Police Department. I'll be calling him just the witness or detective from here forward. I was shocked at first. I was like, whoa, where is this going to go? What did you think when you first saw that the defense's witness was a detective for the Moscow Police Department?
I thought it was a crazy move yet, because they don't even have the jurors selected, right? There's no preliminary.
Right, this is a preliminary hearing. Ann Taylor had some arguments throughout, and we should probably get into those first. She had some arguments that she didn't receive all of the evidence. Some of the evidence that she was inquiring about were videos of the screenshots that she had. And so they stated that those videos were either not preserved by the prosecution or were deliberately destroyed by the prosecution. Right? Those were some of their comments going in. They also said something about an audio on a video that's not combined yet, something to that nature. And they had some concerns about the cast pings and information on that. Those were the complaints that they hadn't gotten all the information from, all the evidence from. Well, a lot of people will come out and say, oh man, when it comes to the alibi that Bryan Kohberger hasn't given is that, the defense should give him what they want, whatever. They don't really see that as a stall tactic. The fact that he hasn't given it, the alibi. Well, the defense had a lot of those type of tactics. In fact, they kind of went back to one of their old tactics in this hearing where, to me, it seems like it was more about, grand jury and the ability to have, if they had enough for the grand jury, or if they presented the evidence correctly at grand jury to get Bryan Kohberger off. And I think they felt they missed the bar on that one. And when it comes to the tactics that the defense has, well, the prosecution has some of their own. This is just my guess, 100%. I'm fairly positive that, somebody in the prosecution probably contacted, Detective Mari and asked him to locate that, that they're, it's being required of them. Maybe give him a little wink, like, don't take your time on it. This dude's waiting a long time to get his alibi. Let's wait until, we get his alibi. Blue, do you think that if Bryan Kohberger gave his alibi, that this information would have come out sooner?
It could be a possibility. I mean, when I watched a little bit of the video, you heard him say, "I just got it yesterday" himself. Like, he hadn't had a lot of time with it to review it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could have been that they were still looking for it. I mean, there was so much information to go through.
Well, he didn't get it. He didn't get it just yesterday. He found it the day before. He had it for some time. And that was one of the other arguments that the defense had, was that the prosecution was holding on to evidence, and that they had proof that they were holding on to evidence. So their witness for majority of this was Detective Mari. Now, a lot of the stuff that they were arguing wasn't brought up in court today, like the audio. I didn't hear anything about the audio. And what I'm assuming happened, and this is probably what the tactic was of the prosecution, was they were going to wait until the last day possible before this hearing to give Ann Taylor the information, because there were several times in this hearing where Ann Taylor was like, she looked a little disappointed. And she looked like, what do you call it?
She seemed like she was fishing. She was fishing with skunk bait because she didn't get no bites.
Well, not only that, but there was times where she was, it almost seemed like she understood the evidence at one point, when she was like, oh, like she had a light bulb went off. You know what I mean? I understand why we didn't get this information, yada, yada, yada. So let's go to yesterday's hearing. We'll go step by step. So the first thing that they wanted to do was attack the detective's training. Ann Taylor was arguing that he didn't have enough training, or when she was asking about his training and the length of the training that he had on a certain program called CastBiz. Now, detective was not the lead investigator in creating or making this. He's just somebody who was who's been trained and certified in operating this system. And when prosecution they asked him, because I'm assuming the lead investigator that did all the work the first time was probably an FBI agent, and they don't want to get involved. So we already know that. And so they asked this detective, because he's trained, he's got a certificate in using this device, which apparently the only thing you have to do is copy and paste, or drag and paste. It's not a very difficult program, but he took a training on it. And she was trying to basically say that he took a training in 2019. He then did the work for the grand jury in 2023, of April 2023, but he went to another training in CAST in October of 2023. So what they were trying to say is that his training, I guess he went to training again after the fact that shouldn't have gone before. But I'll ask you this, Blue. You're in the healthcare field. If you go and get certified in something, how long is certification for CPR?
2 years.
All right.
So get recertified every 2 years.
So if you apply CPR and it's been 1 year and 364 days since you have been certified, are you still qualified to give CPR?
You still are. But like for a lot of employers, if your CPR cert is up, you can't work because of their licensing and stuff.
Right. But this is just for the example. Like if excuse me.
Oh, you CPR can be taught once and the person uses it for the rest of their life.
Right. You know? But what I'm saying is that on that last day before the certification expires, are you still considered certified? I would say yes. So, just because, he took a training in 2019 and this occurred in 2022, doesn't mean that he wasn't still, certified in this type of equipment. And he even goes in there to say, right. He goes in there.
Licenses are 4 years and some are 5.
Yeah, most are 4. But the CPR one I knew was 2. But that was just the first one that I knew that you would have been aware of. And so he goes and gets another certification, and she tries to ask if that certification that he got in 2023, was had something more to do with CAS than what he got in 2019. And that ended up not being the case. They ended up being the same thing. In fact, the training in 2019 was more extensive than the training he got in 2023, proving that was a refresher course, not a new course or something like that. So she tacked his training. I didn't think that went anywhere. Okay, so we talked about how they got all the information the day before and this and that and a third. Like, Ann Taylor wanted this to be very public, right? She had proof that there was screenshots and they don't have the videos for those screenshots and all these things. She wanted this public. She wanted all this to be known. And they sent this on the day before the trial and said, here it is. And now there's an answer to why she has screenshots and no videos and things of that nature. And she just kind of seems like the rug was pulled out of under her. Like her entire plan was foiled. You know what I mean?
Now, it's like your lawyer friend says, you throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, and it didn't stick this time.
So I think that was just a tactic. And I don't know why people think that somehow proves that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. The tactic from the prosecution, or that somehow that's going to get Bryan Kohberger off, right? Like, oh, they need to release him now because, they had in their possession, some evidence and they didn't turn it over. But the truth is, he could be telling the truth. He couldn't find it. You know what I mean? And if that's the case and they barely found it and they turned it over as soon as they found it, and they turned it over before the deadline, I think the deadline was in September. So obviously, in my opinion, I think this is a tactic, and I think Ann Taylor fell right into it. So the next thing that she was attacking was the CDR and the BIZ program. So what she was saying was that he wasn't the lead investigator, although he's trained in it, that he went ahead and put in the CDR, which is cell data reference, or I don't remember what the R stood for, but basically it's just kind of the pinpoints of the locations of where he was at. And what he said was, what you do is you get that list of data that AT&T sent them over, you click on it and you drag it to where it's supposed to go in the BIZ the cast BIZ machine, or whatever you want to call it, the program. You let it go, push enter, and then it'll do the work for you. It'll tell you where all of the points are and the map and the whole 9 yards. And what Ann Taylor was arguing was that he created a session, or she's claiming that he created a session. And in that session, he did some of the work to get those data points and use that in grand jury. Now, she was trying to say that he wasn't trained, to do so. Come to find out that's not true. And then she tried to say, well, he wasn't the lead investigator. And she tried to confuse you being the lead investigator with expert. She started calling him, you're not the expert. And he was like, no, I'm trained and certified in this. He wasn't the lead investigator, the lead guy on it, but he was trained in it. And she was trying to get that point across. It was kind of a little dirty trick, if you ask me.
I don't know why she didn't request an expert. She has that right.
She has an expert, Cyrey or whatever his name is. He can do the same thing. And so
to be on this hearing same time as him. Isn't that how you do your rebuttal with your expert afterwards?
Yeah.
But
well, they just gave it to him yesterday.
Waiting for the hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what he said and what her argument was is, so when he went and created whatever he created, maps and whatever it was that he used in the grand jury, he didn't save that. There wasn't a saved session. And she asks him, can you save it? And the answer is yes. She asked, did you save it? And he said, no. Now, when he gets up on follow up from the prosecution or in cross, he says that, well, the statute says that it's not necessary to save the session, and that he didn't delete anything. He just deleted the reference, which I'm not a computer guy, so I'm not entirely sure what all that meant. To me, it kind of sounded like he created a folder to put a bunch of things in. Once he was done, he deleted the folder, but not the stuff that was in it. And so, for instance, the AT&T points still exist. And she was trying to say that they can't see what he did. And he said, well, all you got to do is the same thing. I can pull it in right now and get the same AT&T points, because it's the same points, and drag them over and copy paste and done. You'll have the same work. You can watch me do it. Basically, it's that simple and it's that quick. And that's the reason why they didn't feel the need to save it. And so, do you see anything fishy about that though, Blue?
No. I mean, they probably should have saved it just to make it easier for them.
Well, they saved the original one.
Yeah, but they don't have to. If they get access to that program, and it's all the same info, then you can input your own data.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's how they should attack this. They should attack this evidence with their expert, not trying to attack the officer that did it, because you can attack the officer that did it and say, oh, you weren't trained, you weren't this, you weren't that. That doesn't necessarily mean he was wrong. If he was wrong, you'd bring an expert in and that expert would come in and say, well, he's wrong because this, and this. Now, the only thing that they have right now from their expert that does the casting is that Bryan Kohberger was south and southwest of Moscow the night of the murders, according to his phone, while his phone was connected to the network. And that's the exact same thing that the PCA says. It says he was in that location. The question is when his phone isn't connected to the network, where is he at that time? You know what I'm saying? So,
the time that it was either disconnected or off, or in airplane mode. So.
Yeah,
that's it. That's where they had to try to prove that he was somewhere else. It's kind of be hard because he don't have no proof that I know of yet.
Right. Yeah, and so moving forward, the right there. I mean, I honestly, I didn't to me, I thought this was just up to this point, kind of a little bit of a waste of time. And then she starts talking about the videos, right? And she starts talking about how, well, the initial argument was that she had screenshots, but no videos to the screenshots. And we hear about a website called windy.com. So let me share this real quick. So this is windy.com, and these are the screenshots that she has. Oh, I go in a little too far. So first thing that we know is that she asks the detective about the cameras that are associated with the traffic devices, and she had asked him if they preserve those and save them, and they don't. They delete them. It's automatically deleted. It's not saved. It's not recorded. And so, because it's not saved or recorded, they couldn't preserve it. And what she got were screenshots, and these screenshots look like they're taken from one of these traffic devices. And so she was asking for the video associated with these screenshots, but there is no video for the screenshots. And then she was asking, well, you can preserve those screenshots by the hour. And I think that they would have had to have been aware of this website. And from the sound of it, they weren't aware of this website for 3 months. Now, for instance, right now, when I'm going back right here, it's 2:14:24, and it'll change the time a little bit. But the further you go back, see, now I'm at 11:14:23. This is 8:14:23. Anyways, we can go all the way back over here to 11/14/2022. So this is, unfortunately, the day after the incident is as far back as we can go. Right. So she was arguing that she had this, but no video behind it, and that these guys were holding evidence. I swear, the prosecutors were probably biting their tongue, trying not to laugh, because they knew what this was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, now you were able to access it.
So
that's something that she should have been able to access it just by looking at the website they got it from.
Right. Yeah. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse for the defense, because it was crumbling. She goes up there, Ann Taylor goes up there and asks questions, and then as she's talking and she starts figuring things out, like for instance, the fact that at any point anybody can just go and put the points in there, and it's just a copy paste component. You can hear it in her voice, like she just kind of felt like she went, oh, you know what I mean? Shoulders kind of went down too. I don't know where a lot of people see this win for the defense. I don't see one at all. But then here's when, just when I thought,
she was drilling them. She was like asking them all these questions, and some of them, he. The thing is, when you're under oath, you have to answer them in a professional manner, not just like slang. Like, oh, I can do that. Yeah, that's me. Or so it takes a while to think of the right words to say, because you're going to be ridiculed by what you say, especially by, look at us already talking about it today. This happened yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right. It did happen yesterday. And we're talking about it today. I'm trying to pull up this video for you, Blue. Let me pull this off real quick. So she's talking about the screenshots for this. There's no screenshots. There's none of that. The argument that they were holding evidence, I think that one kind of holds a little bit of weight, because he says that it was in a folder, right? And in that folder, it was in there. He just couldn't find it for the longest time, but they had it for a while. What do you think about that? I think it has to do with the alibi. What do you think?
I mean, that part, it sounds like everybody says a little fishy, like, because I mean, I know they have a bunch of other investigations that they're going through, so whoever the lead investigators on this probably should have been like, if they got a request from her office, should have gone back and looked for the emails and sent them to her. But like you said, they might have sent it to the lead investigator. He's not the lead investigator, so maybe they finally like, hey, you're the one that did this part. Did you ever send that over? And he's like, I don't know, let me check. And then he's like, oh, I sent it to you or sent it over here. I might have not sent it to the right person. So that happens, man. Stuff always falls down in the middle of the cracks. It sucks, but like there's still a deadline of when all this information has to be there, and if they don't know that you're looking for it or what you're looking for, then they're not going to get it in time. If she specifically sent it to them, requesting that time frame of where that video was from.
Right. Well, there was no video.
The images. I think
the images,
it depends on how the stuff came over.
You see, the images weren't relevant. The images that they got off of windy.com was during the day. They weren't at night or any of those things. And so remember when she was arguing, it was like, I got images of, street cams that are at the wrong time. Well, that's what she was talking about. And it was from the windy.com. They weren't from the actual, stoplights there in the city of Moscow. And which makes sense because what do we know? We know that in my opinion, they didn't know who this person was until they got the IGG. Right? Now, if they didn't have access to the cameras in the city, those were the higher quality cameras that would have been able to tell the exact year the vehicle was. Remember, we read an article that stated that the vehicle initially was thought to be a 2019, and then it was a 2011 a 1300 Elantra. And if you guys go back and watch or find it, I said something to the effect that what that means is they got more evidence as time went along. Not everything is wrapped and bundled for the detectives on a table. They got to investigate and find that stuff. And so to me, them changing the vehicle even that time told me that they, they had probably some difficult images that they were working with. They weren't the street cam ones. And that also made sense as far as why they didn't know where he came from, why they didn't know that he came in from Pullman or which direction he came in from. They've been working with solely ring camera footage. And so if you're looking at the ring camera footage of different houses and security cam footage of businesses, if that's what you're relying on, well, houses and businesses, they don't face down the street, they face towards the street. So all the images that we're probably seeing outside of the 1112 King Road residence are side shots of this vehicle. It's probably why they thought it was a 2011 or 13 Elantra. What'd you say, Blue?
Because they're mostly just facing your front door, and they catch as a glimpse of the car passing by. Most of the time, depending on the sensitivity on your camera.
Yeah, and again, it was dark too. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so
if they were able to access, see, that's what we don't know yet is what video evidence they have, because being around a college town like that, the college area, there's always cameras everywhere because of all the incidents that happen. So there might be more footage or pictures of the car somewhere that hasn't been released.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the PCA says numerous amount of video footage of the vehicle. They only talk about what they need to talk about in the PCA. There is this misconception out there that if it's not in the PCA, it's not real, right? And it didn't exist. I was literally told today that the DNA in the car and stuff, why wasn't it in the PCA or in his house or all this other stuff? And I was like, dude, the search warrants came after his arrest. What do they do? Go back in time to put that into the PCA? Because the PCA was before his arrest. It's just, some of this stuff is just not logical. You know what I mean? Well, anyways, so he they come to this point. Let's get to this. They come to this point where I think Ann Taylor gives the best evidence in favor of Bryan Kohberger. Yeah, it's truly. Oh, yeah, you know, that's where I was at. I almost forgot. We're at the PCA. So the PCA is designed to be extremely vague. Like, you don't want to give your case away to the defendant or to the defense. So you only put the bare minimum, which is why they only put the times that it mattered when they saw him on video. Like, we don't know anything about the Floyd cannabis shop. We didn't hear anything about this Red Star coffee shop or any of these other things beforehand, right? We know in the PCA it says numerous footage. What are you gonna say, Blue?
I said the PCA just has to have enough information to, you know, to say he's the suspect and they want to arrest him for this,
right?
For this incident.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when you look at the latent footprint. Those that believe that he's innocent think that that's all they found was a single latent footprint, that there was no other footprints in the house or outside of the house. And that's just probably wrong. They don't put it, you know, they only put the one that corroborates what Dylan had said. What Dylan said was that she saw the masked person walk by her and towards the glass door. And that is believed when he exited the residence. So if that's the case, latent footprints, how do they become latent, Blue? How does a latent footprint become latent?
I don't know.
Oh, so
it disappears there.
Well, it's as you take steps, less and less of the blood is transferred from your shoe to the floor.
Gotcha.
So as you take steps, the footprints will become thinner. If the footprint is light and you can't see it to the naked eye, do you think that's one of the first footprints he took or first steps he took, or one of the last steps he took?
It'd probably be one of the last ones, but
yeah, one of the last ones, because one of the first ones would be not latent, it'd be visible. And so the fact that it was the second showing also points to us that what they did on the first showing was document all the visible footprints. Now, for the PCA, the fact that there's bloody footprints doesn't mean anything. So they're not going to put that there. They put the latent one, and only the latent one, to show that that footprint was one of the last ones made, and it was pointing towards the exit of the glass door. So that corroborates what Dylan saw, and it also says that chances are killer started on the third floor, went down to the second floor, and then exited right there. Right? So a lot of people perceive, just because the PCA speaks of the one print, that there is only one print. And the other problem is the same can be said for the entire PCA. That's just one thing. That's just one thing that we bring up. The rest can be said with the entire PCA. We don't know everything surrounding that one piece of evidence. All we're looking at this point is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more underneath the water that we don't know about. And we'll find out. It'll come out during court. Yeah. But just because it's not in the PCA doesn't mean it didn't happen. And so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, this is the part. Oh, the other last thing I wanted to say was, because the PCA is vague, right? How much evidence do we know that they have against Bryan Kohberger? I think it's 51 terabytes. It's a crap ton of evidence, ain't it, Blue?
It is a bunch, but
so if you were being vague, does 19 pages sound about right with that amount of evidence?
That is pretty vague, because I would expect at least 100-page report with all the good information.
Right, but the PCA is designed to be vague, just enough to show that there's enough probable cause for an arrest. Probable cause is not beyond reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't even got to that part. That part happens in trial with 12 jurors. So this is the part, Blue, that I've been waiting to show you. This is the part where Ann Taylor pulls out some magic out of her hat. You ready, Blue?
Your Honor, would move for admission of defendants P. Oh, Dr.
Thank you. That's what, I'm sorry, PP?
Double P, yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. Exhibit PP is exhibit or admitted. No objection.
That was about it. I think that was the brightest thing that was said out of the defense was we got exhibit PP. That made my day. That made me laugh. That made the judge laugh too. You could see him smirk. Did you hear that there, Blue, during trial?
Yeah, I did not catch that part.
You did not catch that part? Yeah, that was the big swing and miss on the defense. And so, yeah, they argued back and forth about him doing the IG, or not the IgG, the cast information, for the grand jury, and that he didn't save his work for what he did and put out for the grand jury. But he's like, all I gotta do is do it again. Those data points still exist. That warrant for Bryan Kohberger's points from AT&T has existed since December.
Yeah.
So,
and they even showed the points of where he was tracked in the news since they arrested him.
Mm-hmm. And so
it's been out there.
Mm-hmm. And like, I know somebody says that the PCA was mostly opinions and theories. Man, you're missing a big part of the PCA. So not opinion or theory. Bryan Kohberger's DNA was inside that house under the body of the victim. A vehicle matching Bryan Kohberger's car is seen outside on multiple videos. Bryan Kohberger's phone is so happened to be off or not connected during the specific time of the incident. And when his phone comes on, he's not necessarily southwest of Moscow, is he? He's south of Moscow. Yeah. Nowhere near the Wawawai Park.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And so those are facts. Part. Yeah, that's all you need to arrest him. To be honest, they didn't need to put in a bunch of the other stuff that was in there. I thought that was excess fat. But they wanted to go a little bit above and beyond to disprove some of the rumors that were going on, in my opinion. Back in that time, what was happening? That TikToker was getting sued because she was blaming the professor. And there was people blaming the lawyer guy that lived down the street or the fire thrower next door. Big Blue, I think you were a part of that group.
Hey, I wasn't a part of it. I just thought, it was a weird excuse to say you were stick juggling in the middle of the night while practicing setting your house on fire or something like that. But I saw somebody doing it outside, man. That's pretty cool, but pretty dangerous if it gets out of control. Set your roof on fire or something.
Right.
But yeah, we all had our theories in the beginning, and I always remember, the police chief always up there saying the main thing. He would say, "Be patient. We want to make sure that when we arrest this guy, it's gonna stick. It ain't gonna be, we want to make sure that it's gonna be I had it in my head before we started talking that it was going to be prosecuted, that it was going to go through and it wasn't no mistakes." So, that was his words. I remember that because all the other accusations were out there.
Yeah. And just kind of like when somebody says that there's no proof that I've seen in the chat, no proof it was Bryan Kohberger's car. They didn't get this light or his license plate or any of those things. The evidence they have against Bryan Kohberger in any trial, it's like a math problem, right? And there's different components to it. And I explained this to another viewer the other day. I said, my frustration with the Kohbergers is that I'll say 10 plus 5 plus 5 plus 10 is 30. And they'll argue with me by saying no, because 10 plus 5 isn't 30. And they refuse to add the other components to the math problem. They want to simplify and say that I'm wrong by looking at only two components of the problem. And so when we look at Bryan Kohberger's case, you can say, oh, there's no proof that it was his car. There's 22,000 cars out there that match similar to his, blah, blah, blah. Well, I dare to ask you, we can start off there. Out of those 22,000 cars, how many don't have a front license plate? I'm sure it's going to cut off quite a bit, because in Washington and in Idaho, it was something that was mandatory. I know there's other people that aren't from the area that drive in. Kohberger was one of them that may not have a front license plate. So there's going to be a few. So out of those few, how many of those are male drivers? Out of those male drivers, how many of those are 5'10" and taller? So you start deducing, you start excluding them. Out of those guys that are 5'10" and taller, how many of them were out and about that night? And out of those that were out and about that night, how many of them had Bryan Kohberger's DNA on them? When you put it that way, you just, come on now. What are you trying to say?
You know, I still think it's going to be more evidence in the trial. It's going to take time. And it's like the Murdaugh case. You know, it took a while. It wasn't, all the evidence wasn't all put out there in the beginning, you know? Yeah. We all found out the same information.
It's still not out there.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it takes time. A lot of it comes out during trial. And there's a lot of information, and we'll just have to wait for it, which is going to be a while. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to push it till next summer or later.
Oh, yeah.
I just saw a case tried yesterday. I think they say it was a January 2022 case. So, and there wasn't a lot of publicity around that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think this one's going to happen soon. I hope it does. I think they're going to, one of the next courts in June is going to be whether or not they're going to move it from Moscow or not. I hope they do. I hope they get a change of venue. What do you think, Blue? Do you think that it should stay there?
I think if it benefits having the case heard sooner, then I would say definitely yes. Like they mentioned, if it's going to interfere with all the schooling, pick a different town that's closer that wouldn't be affected. Even though nothing's close to there, I mean, I get it. It's a rural area, but there are a few towns that don't have a big college in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like, and when it comes to like Kohberger, because some people will say that I'm not open-minded or whatever the case may be. The problem is that you can basically disprove a lot of the theories that are out there. You know, the fact that it was a frat kid that was drunk on roid rage. I mean, really, a frat kid drunk on roid rage is going to drive around the house 3 times. I mean, he's losing his mind. He's out of control. He's going to drive around 3 times, go in with no force entry, kill 4 people without leaving their DNA on the bodies. And there's a camera 50 feet away that picks up noises of whimpering and some other stuff. And it doesn't pick up the sounds of somebody losing their mind. So I think you can kind of rule that one out. The fact that there's a white car driving around, as suspicious as it is, it kind of leads you to believe that the person that committed this crime is probably not that close to the area. Like, for instance, they probably have on the 1122 King Road residence camera, they have probably Jack DeCour's car coming in and parking down the street. So they know that it's not his car coming around and circling. Why the hell would he do that anyways? Right? And again, there's a camera there. Why isn't the camera not hearing the crime of passion? You know, when there's a crime of passion, it's not a silent thing. Somebody losing their mind, somebody going crazy. There's a lot of yelling, there's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of banging on the walls, things of that nature. It's like similar to a domestic disturbance. Those things aren't quiet.
Somebody said he could have walked there, and I mean, he could have, but where he lived, he would have to pass the quad, and then the other camera that was in those apartment complexes.
But he didn't walk there. There's a freaking car, and because like I'm not saying that Bryan Kohberger is driving that car. Like I can take Bryan Kohberger out of it. Well, what do we know? There's audio that picks up stuff between 4 and 4:20. That vehicle's driving around before and is seen leaving at a high rate of speed after. Whoever committed this crime is in that car. So he could have walked, or somebody could have walked, or this or that. That's out the window. In fact, Ann Taylor isn't even arguing that the killer isn't the person in that white car. They're arguing that Bryan Kohberger isn't the person in that white car. They're saying that white car belongs to somebody else, being operated by somebody else, and they're committing the crime. Because they're saying he wasn't in Moscow that day. You know?
Yeah. No, we're just going over the case. Somebody asked if they were late. I said, yeah, we're going over the case. The officers.
Right. And so, like, to me, I saw this trial or hearing. I don't know why I keep calling it a trial. It's a hearing. That's a big nothing burger, man. In fact, I think it kind of maybe even embarrassed a little bit the defense there. For those that understand what they're looking at. I get that there's some folks that are emotionally drawn to this case. And because they're so emotionally drawn, they'll take anything as a win. Like Ann Taylor could say tomorrow, you know, we got the evidence, and I don't know, she'd probably say something like, you know, we got evidence that Bryan Kohberger was in Moscow. And those that are following this are so infatuated and emotionally drawn to it, will cheer for whatever she says, even if it's something that doesn't go in favor of their defendant. Similar to like that survey. That survey was not a good survey for the defendant. I think that survey probably hurt Bryan Kohberger more than anything else. And I think a change of venue is going to hurt Bryan Kohberger more than anything else. Because those people that know about the DNA and have been that invested are also the same people that are following the YouTube channels. The same people that are following, could be me, could be Truth and Transparency. And so you have all those people that knew about this information. I would hate for one of those people to actually be put on as a juror, and be one of those persons that thinks that Bryan Kohberger is innocent automatically and causes a mistrial and a retrial. You know what I'm saying, Blue? So I'd rather it go to Boise or some other place in rural Idaho than it'd be there in Moscow, because there are people in that area who are super invested in, you know, only maybe have heard evidence from one side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, you know, so I said it should be moved. But I think right now, the way as big as this case is, it's going to be known all over the place. But you might get a better chance to be in a bigger city where more stuff happens. You know, that this might not be as on their radar as other things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a small town, like where it happened. I mean, I haven't seen the news lately over there. Right. But I think what's going on right now, graduations, that's like probably the biggest thing going on. You know, if you look at the news here, yeah, it's graduations, but, you know, there was like 3 shootings here in town just last night, you know. Mm-hmm. Somebody, you know, passed away from a rollover accident. So our information just, you know, one year out the other, because we got so much more information coming in that might happen going to a bigger city.
Yeah, you're right. So Marilyn asks, if you have questions, put a couple of stars. I'm going to start kind of paying attention to it. Blue, just kind of star the ones with stars. If you see them, you don't need to read them or anything like that. I'll go through them when they're in the starred thing. Marilyn says, for all we know, they have since found the murder weapon. Unlikely, but in the event that ends up being true, at one point, is it necessary to tell the defense? Well, once you have proven that it is the murder weapon, you know, you're going to have to process that weapon, make sure that it is the murder weapon, process it for DNA, things of that nature. Now, if it comes back to DNA from the victims or from the defendant, then at that point is when you turn over all of that evidence. I don't know if somebody, if they found anything or not. I don't think so. But, we know that on the 14th, he connected to a tower that services Moscow, but he wasn't in Moscow. So he was in the outskirts of Moscow somewhere, out in the wilderness, out in the boonies, where he and that includes the area where he traveled while his phone was off before it reconnected to the towers at 4:48. Let's see. So many people are still trying to push the stalker. The thing is, I talked to Christy about the stalker incident. The vague description that Dylan gave about the person that entered that house, 5'10" or taller, bushy eyebrows, probably said something about race. It was a white guy. Those two guys that were in the convenience store, they don't match that description. The height, weight, none of it. So it excludes them. That's what I'm talking about with excluding. If Dylan would have said that the person that she saw matched more similar to the persons that were in the convenience store, then it would exclude Bryan Kohberger. So her witness's statement doesn't say it's Bryan Kohberger, but it also doesn't say that it's not. And then you have the DNA in the house, and then you can say, all right, well, we have DNA in the house. It matches this person that can't be excluded. Does this person happen to drive a white Elantra without a front license plate? Boom, another one. Now that's a real boom. You go and find out this guy drives a white Elantra, no front license plate at that time. So now you have his description, his DNA in the house, and a vehicle that matches his. Well, let's go see where he was at based off of his phone. Boom, his phone is off. I don't know. This is where I don't understand the confusion on this. Every argument, too, up to this point, there hasn't been one from the defense's side that says he's innocent. Every argument they've had has been trying to get the grand jury thrown out or get the IGG thrown out or any of those things. Where's the argument that no, at 4:20 I was at this place and location? Wasn't there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So, yeah, it is what it is. And again, like when we go to court, none of this is going to matter anyways. The jury that they select aren't going to be the ones that are this invested into this trial to know anything about the hearings that have occurred. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think even if it does get pushed out by then, a lot of the people that are invested into this case also might be not too invested. They'll have to relearn their information. So maybe they'll release some better information by then with the hearings. I mean, there's another hearing on Thursday. We'll see what they put out then.
Yeah.
I think with these preliminary hearings, it's like like in any case, they're trying to get rid of they're trying to trim the fat of what they can. And they're trimming and trimming and trimming. So that way they can't use all the good information that might automatically make somebody think that this person's guilty. If it can't be, logically, or it's not backed up by any science, or it's not, the expert disagrees with it, then that's when they go to court and fight it out and try to prove their case. So We'll see how everything goes.
Right. No, I get it. And somebody here says there's no proof that the phone was off. I mean, I didn't say it was off. Well, I may have said it was off, but it wasn't connected to the network. And we can kind of deduce some things, right? Could it have gone in, could it have lost service? Well, lost service inside of Pullman. And if there was some sort of massive AT&T outage, I'm pretty sure we would have kind of heard about that by now from the defense's side. They like to bring up a lot of things and everything they can, right? Which a lot of it has just been mud, as we spoke about earlier. But that would be something, hey, everybody's phone was off. So it wasn't just Bryan Kohberger's. Everybody's phone was not connected to the towers. And then the other thing is, we don't know if his phone was off or any of those things, but his phone would tell law enforcement whether or not he manually shut it off or put it in airplane mode. Now, the only thing it won't be able to tell is if he puts it in one of those like aluminum bags that doesn't allow your signal to go in. That if he did one of those things, like a microwave, he put it in one of those things, and then he's going to lose service. It's going to be on, and when he takes it out, brings him back into service. It's kind of odd that when he does get back into service, is just south of that tower in Moscow. I wonder if that's part of the planning he did. Right? Check to see that. Not only that, but I mean, if he turned it on at the right time, and he's getting to that other tower that law enforcement didn't look at, that wouldn't look suspicious to that tower, because anybody traveling on that road going into that tower, they would just connect to it, similar to the manner that he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think my opinion, for the phone to lose contact in a town where there's actually a tower close by, it's fishy.
Mm-hmm.
It's way too fishy. I mean, like if it would have said, it was roaming, it would still show that it's roaming on a different network.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the internet might be blotchy, but your calls and texts and all that still go through. It's just your internet sucks.
I think emergency calls will go through if there's a tower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your GPS still works to an extent, because mine doesn't have crappy spottage. When I travel somewhere and I use my GPS, I know I have areas where I cross where the phone calls will go in and out, but my GPS will still be working. So I don't know how that works, but when I travel, I use the GPS on my phone quite a bit.
Well, here's what we know though: the tower, he got enough connection from Blaine, Idaho, all the way down and do this big old loop, even up into Pullman, through the area where his phone lost service earlier. Now it's working perfectly through that area, and we're supposed to believe that's what, some sort of coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences.
And it would be like a common thing if it happened all the time. Cause like I say, when I lived in Wisconsin, I lived in an area where my phone did suck. It did have no good service, and it was AT&T. And once I got out a certain area of town, I would get like service on and off, but it would do a phone dump, and then it would do I call the phone dump. I don't know what they're actually called, but like all your messages would come in at once because it finally had enough strength to get all the messages to go through. But your phone would track the times that it came in. I don't know.
So this is weird. I thought the DNA was only on the sheath, not in the house. I think the sheath was inside the house, under the body of a victim. So if the sheath is in the house, the DNA is on the sheath, the DNA is in the house.
But the sheath, it was on
how
the
it
sheath
got in there and all that other stuff is a different argument. But the truth is, his DNA is in the house. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, the sheath isn't floating above. The sheath wasn't floating above the house. It's inside it, under the body of a victim. So it's inside the house. So I don't understand where that disconnect is. Let's see. They should have his students do their own investigation. No. It's all right. He's not shouting innocent yet. He hasn't said anything. Nobody wants.
And I think that's the craziest part is, those people out there asking for that they're innocent, that they have the wrong person. He hasn't said one thing, but I was driving around and I went to a state park in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. We're going to log off here in about 5 minutes, guys. If you have any questions, please put a couple stars. Get them in now.
Yeah.
Daniel, they haven't said there's no DNA in the house, have they? They haven't, but I suspect that if they found DNA on the bodies, fingernails, any of those things, then they probably would have used that versus the DNA on the sheath. Especially if it's transfer DNA, we don't know if that is. All we do know is that the STR match between Bryan Kohberger and the DNA on the sheath came back like 5 octillion times him. So the more likely that it's him, the more DNA evidence that there are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And challenge data.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't anything on anything else from anybody on the bodies or anything. So nobody get arrested for this case. Somebody who knew what they were doing as far as how to protect themselves, how not to leave their DNA behind. Somebody maybe specifically trained in forensics and how not to do that could have accomplished this. That's exactly one of the things that I talk about when I say the means. Means is not just are they capable, physically, strength and stuff like that, but are they also trained? Do they also know techniques that could elude the investigation in the manner that Bryan Kohberger did? They don't. None of these suspects do. Thank you, Sirius Black, for your $5 donation. We appreciate you. Friday night with the turkeys. Thank you. And so, yeah, just kind of do a little quick recap, I guess. They came out, they were arguing a few things. One of the things they were arguing were they wanted the video to these screenshots. Apparently they don't exist. They never existed. And apparently Moscow, now people know this. I wonder if Bryan Kohberger knew this. Maybe that's the reason why he chose Moscow, that their video don't save. In fact, I think that was some sort of public information because somebody had told me that in the past, that the videos in Moscow don't save. But I had no proof of who they were, so I just said, okay. You know what I mean? But
it's hard because we're not from there, so we don't know. Like I said, I'm pretty sure there is some campuses have like live streams of their like area outside, in front of the courtyards and stuff.
Yeah,
people can see the weather and stuff like that.
Yeah. Shazam Bandana says, Daniel, when roughly do you think JJ will set a trial date? After the change of venue. I think after the change of venue thing is done, they'll probably set a date. I'm pretty sure they'll get the change of venue, and I'm hoping they do. A lot of people think that when I'm biased one way or the other, but I'm just straightforward. If we heard the sounds of emotion coming from the cameras at 1112 King Road, for instance, if we heard screams, somebody yelling, somebody saying, I can't believe you did this to me, or F you, or anything like that, then I would think, all right, this was a crime of emotion. Somebody was pissed. Somebody was mad because their loved one left them. If they had their DNA left on the knife sheath and their vehicle was seen in the camera outside, then I'd be just as hard pressed on whoever that person was. You know what I mean? It's not just because it's Bryan. I don't know who the hell Bryan Kohberger is to care, that I want this man to go down, like no matter what. What the hell do I care, of who Bryan Kohberger? Blue, do you care who Bryan Kohberger is?
It's just another person accused of a bad crime. One of thousands.
Right, but do you hate him so much that if there was evidence that says he's innocent, that you'd still want him guilty?
No. If there's something proving that it's not him, I'd rather it come out now so we won't waste all this time.
Exactly.
And they can actually find the right person.
Exactly. But I think they got the right guy.
Why waste all that time, all the resources, when, okay, it wasn't him, there's somebody out there that could possibly do this again to somebody else's family. And this guy's over there trying to take all the attention.
I mean, it's not a coincidence this hasn't happened again in the area since Bryan Kohberger got there or been arrested. You know, this type of thing didn't happen before Bryan Kohberger got there. It just happened in the short period of time while he was in town. And to put icing on the cake, this dude, and I have other choice words for him, but this dude is literally saying his alibi for the night that he was out and about or whatever. He says at some point he went to go visit the location where Ted Bundy started his serial killing spree. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Well, guys, I appreciate everybody here. We thank you guys. We'll be back probably on Monday. Till then, we'll see you later. Peace out, y'all.
Peace out.